Okay, welcome everyone. Great to be here again today. What a fantastic Monday, live here from 201 Portage, Winnipeg, Manitoba, sunny Winnipeg, Manitoba, although cold on the weekend. I'm Rob Tatro from robtatro.com, portfolio manager at Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management and the Tatro Wealth Advisory Group. Great to be here today, folks. What are we today? May 4th, 2020. We're live today, Monday afternoon. Markets just closed. We're going to go through the market closings today, guys. Today, I'd really like to be interactive with you guys. I would love to hear from you with respect to what's on your mind with respect to the market, what's on your mind with respect to, stocks, specific sectors, questions about me, the Tatro Group. Happy to look through any and all of that. But before we do get to that, please let's take a look at this wonderful disclaimer. Okay, friendly reminder, this is not investment advice. Please do not take this as investment advice. Instead, take this as maybe conversation, partly entertainment, partly personal reflection, maybe. It's a lot of personal reflection for me, and definitely take it as information because we are going to run through the headlines of the day today, and there were quite a few. Me personally, what's been going on in my life since we last connected? So I noticed in Winnipeg here, the streets are busier. I've noticed it. I said it last week. It's dramatically busier today. There was actually times where I had to almost wait at a traffic light to get the next person in. So that was pretty busy. This weekend, we were out and about quite a bit with the family. It was crazy busy. I thought we went out for a bike ride, went to the Forks. We saw a ton of people out and about. TV watching. Anyone doing any TV watching? I historically do not watch much TV at all. But I've been really getting into this Michael Jordan documentary. If anyone's getting into TV shows and you'd like to share with me, I'd love to hear what you're watching, what's interesting for you. This Last Dance by Michael Jordan is it's really good. If you like sport documentaries, Michael Jordan, he is good. And the producers of that show are really, really good. So that show's one that I really enjoyed. I also, season 10 of Curb Your Enthusiasm is one I watched as well. Really, really good. And I've watched a few episodes of the show about tigers, this king. I believe he's a monarch, Tiger King, something like that. Crazy, entertaining. I don't take it too seriously, but it's definitely entertaining. Anyways, feel free to give me your comments on here. Market today finished up slightly. I'm looking at my ticker here right at my screen in front of me. Most of the stocks finished up at the end of the day here today, which was neat because we were actually down, earlier. So I see here we're close to flat here. The market's just closed. They eked out a small gain to start the week, supported mostly on the heels of tech. Gold finished down $15, $16.78. Silver's down 11 cents. Copper's down 4 cents. I don't know how up to date these numbers are on here at the bottom, but I know crude was up today, up $3, $18.84. Gold minor loss there as well that we're seeing on the ticker, which is running at the bottom. The TSX also was up about. What's crazy is that I look at the markets all day, but I looked at them, maybe an hour ago, 2 hours ago, and in the U.S. we were down like 250, 300 points, and in Canada we were down quite a bit. And we rallied hard in the last hour. Now, when I say rallied hard, back in the day before COVID, a hard rally used to be 100, 200 points in an hour. That was a really good rally. I feel like I'm so jaded now that we've seen these 1,000, 2,000 point rallies in one specific day, or even decreases in one specific day. You get jaded and you forget kind of what normalcy is with respect to the market. But mark my word, guys, we will get back to normalcy. It's coming. It's coming at some point. I do think we're in for volatility ahead of that, but normalcy is coming. The big news for me on the weekend was definitely Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha. What a great nickname. Maybe someday, if I play my cards right, I will have a nickname like the Oracle of Omaha. That'd be fantastic to get a nickname like that. If you have an idea for a nickname for me, please don't be offensive though, because I have weak skin. No, that's a joke. If you have an idea for a nickname, please send it my way. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are for a nickname. I've never really had a nickname. When I was younger, pretty much everyone called me Rob. My name's Robert. Everyone called me Rob. When I went to University of Moncton, in 1999. I wanted a fresh start when I got there, went there on a volleyball scholarship, and I switched my name to Bob, just like that. And then I became Bob. Some people know me as Bob. Most people know me as Rob. But those are not really nicknames. I'd say those are shortened forms of names. Let's get into the news here with respect to the Oracle of Omaha. So his annual, they call it Woodstock for investors, was on the weekend. The couple big news that came out. The big one I would say is divesting of the airlines. So let's start there. So Warren Buffett announced that he's divesting of the airlines. So he reversed course on his airlines, sold all of the 4 positions he had in his 4 airlines, completely exited all Southwest Airlines, American Airlines, Delta, and United Air. Those are American airlines. He's out. That was $6.5 billion in sales in April. So Warren Buffett was a guy who always said, I'm never going to be in an airlines. And then he got in the last 10 or so years, and now he's out. During his meeting, he says that the fundamentals have changed. I'm getting some nicknames suggested by Leela. Sheriff of Canadian Finances. I kind of like that, but it's the Sheriff, maybe? No, Shane Knighty has that nickname already. Shane Knighty, who was the video voice, sports voice of the Winnipeg Jets. So he's out of the airlines. So he basically said that he's not going to do it. As a result, today, I don't know if you guys followed the airline stocks today. You probably didn't. They opened down 10% this morning. Delta was down big. Southwest, they were all down a ton this morning. Airline industry is down big. So he's out. He built up cash. Another point of notice with respect to Warren Buffett in this weekend, we found out that he didn't buy any securities on the first dip in March. So I had spoken on the show here before that Warren Buffett had $136 billion of cash, $136 billion of cash on the books, on their balance sheet. And I said, you know what? He's going to buy. At some point, he's going to buy. And when he buys, that's going to send him a signal to the market that, you know what? It's time to get in. But the thing with Warren Buffett is we never know when he buys because he typically files it in his reports afterwards. So he announced that he didn't buy it. So that means he's on the sidelines. He continues to be on the sidelines. He's a believer that there's a bunch of better opportunities. He straight up said there wasn't anything that was appealing to him. There wasn't anything that was worthy of a buy. He said, historically, we've been pretty visible in the marketplace, encouraging investors to take advantage of market downturns. And he always wants to be greedy when others are fearful. That is his quote, by the way. Be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. It's also attributable to my dad in my household. He says it all the time. Buffett himself isn't seeing opportunities. So he's not seeing opportunities yet. He's still sitting on cash. He thinks that the recovery isn't obviously done yet. He thinks that we're going to likely see a W meaning, the market retesting some of the lows. He did say he'll be ready to invest. He'll be ready to pounce when and if we see those numbers. Warren Buffett, what else did he say? He mentioned a couple other things. He mentioned basically what he's done in the past is he would strike some famous deals when specifically the Goldman Sachs deal, General Electric deal. He would swoop in when others are panicky, and he would effectively buy those companies pennies on the dollar. But what happened is the deals are likely swayed a little bit because of the Fed. So the U.S. Fed stepped in, poured in a ton of money into the market. As a result of that, that likely limited his opportunity to buy. Had the market been a pure kind of capitalist market without the Fed intervention, he's basically hinting that he thinks the stocks would have gone lower and he would have had an opportunity potentially to buy some of those stocks. As a result of that, though, they did buy back some of their own shares. So when we talk about share buybacks, I'll explain a quick concept for you guys. Every company on their own balance sheet can effectively go into the market and buy securities of their own stock. So they're doing the opposite of diluting. They're decreasing their cash and increasing their equity exposure. So you end up having a larger per share equity position and a smaller per share cash position. So that's something that he did do to the tune of $1.7 billion on the weekend. Not a ton, I should say on the weekend. He announced it on the weekend. Not a ton, but some share buyback. So all in all, I think ho-hum is what I'd say for the first ever Zoom conference. It was actually hosted on Yahoo. I watched it. I watched part of it. It was 4 hours long. I wasn't blown away by it. I was kind of expecting more. I mean, the guy is 89 years old and Charlie Munger is 95. These guys are like older than my dad by quite a bit. No, that's a joke, Claude. If you're watching, you're still way, 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 way younger than them. But like really, these guys are they're in their 90s and they're managing billions of dollars. So I expected more, but didn't get it. So it was entertaining nonetheless. I do want to take you guys through some headlines here at the bottom. Vancouver home sales. I saw this one here, this article. Vancouver home sales. The headline says Vancouver home sales are down 39% from the year earlier. Well, I read further into the article. Yes, Vancouver home sales are down 39%, but that's as a result of the number of houses being on the market being less than they were a year ago. So this isn't market prices being down 39%. This is 39% less houses on the market. The prices are actually flat relative to a year ago, or close to flat relative to a year ago. So sometimes when you read these headlines, guys, I strongly encourage you to have your have your critical thinking hat on and ask questions. This one, I read it. You know what? The prices are flat, way less listings. Why do you think there are less listings? The obvious answer is because there's less people that want to go visit homes, and there's less people that want to sell their homes. So I think it's a natural occurrence at this point where we are in the market. Some of the biggest decliners in Canada, Air Canada. Air Canada was a big decline today. They made headlines. Their profit, they announced earnings. Their profit plummeted. They called it the darkest period for the industry. The CEO had some blunt talk, the magnitude of the crisis, basically saying we're now living through the darkest period ever in the history of commercial aviation. That's Calvin Rovanescu said that. Their interest tax depreciation sank 90% year over year. So that's a big number. They were on track to get 28 consecutive quarters of growth, but they missed that. So, the stock is down quite a bit today. They did slash their capacity by as much as 90%, and that's going to achieve savings. But goodness, that stock is down a ton. It's been down a ton in the last while. They posted a net loss of $1.05 billion compared to profits of $345 million during the same time last year. That's about $4 per share of straight up losses. So the key when you look at share prices, guys, you're looking at a share price, you're saying, how do I know what it's worth? How do I know what the share is worth? And Claude and I talked about this a few times in the past shows, but a share price is typically worth a multiple of a profit. So Air Canada, in this case, does not have a profit. Typically, the times when you see companies that don't have a profit that are trading high is usually what we call growth stocks. So growth stocks are the ones that are projected to earn a lot of money in the future. Snapchat was an example. Came out, did their IPO. They were not profitable. They were poor. They were losing money. All of these large tech companies, when they came out, they were all not profitable. So in other words, turning a loss every year. It's rare to see a mature company like this, a mature company like Air Canada turn such a significant loss. Generally not a good sign for these industries. Although, again, this is, I would call it a one-off. I would call it an extremely independent event, a black swan event, as some would say. Black swan event, for those of you who don't know the term, I think it comes from the fact that you don't see black swans often, I would imagine. And therefore, something that you kind of see extremely rare, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now. I want to talk about the job numbers. Job numbers came out. By the way, guys, Rob Tatro from robtatro.com. Please give me your questions. I'd love to answer any and all questions that you guys have. Viewers, if you're tuning in now, we'd love to hear anything that's on your mind. If you'd like to book a no obligation consultation, please go to www.speaktorob.com. I would love to chat with you if there's something on your mind. Also, I'm going to tease this out later and likely next week, but we've now booked some really, really neat guests that are coming in the next couple of weeks. Maybe a dragon, maybe two dragons will join me on the Tatro show in the future. I am thrilled about that. Our producer, Mox, and co-producer Diggs have been really working the phone, so we're really thrilled. And people are reaching out to be on the show too, which is really, really neat. Those guests are coming likely this month. So really, really excited about that. Employment numbers. The employment numbers that came out, they weren't great. So you guys know that in the U.S., the numbers came out last week. 33 billion people applied for unemployment benefits in the last 5 or 6 weeks. That's a lot of people. In Canada, we lost 1 billion workers in March. Now, the number is expected to be released Friday for the month of April.
I took a look at what the economists are suggesting. 12 predicted, most of them are predicting a drop of 4 or more. The estimates are all between kind of 1.5 and 5.5 million Canadians without a job in the month of April. So the average is kind of right around 4-ish million jobs is what we're predicting that the loss of jobs will be for the month of April. Again, the good news is that this is likely to be short term. I'm an optimist. I think the glass is 3/4 full, as I like to say. But right now, there's a lot of people that aren't working, as we know. Think of your friends and family members. And in Canada, this is a significant amount. There's about, between, I think it's about 17 or 18 million people that work in Canada. So that is a large chunk of the Canadian population. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. I'll be reporting on that as the number comes out. But it's going to be an eye-popping number, one that the chart is not going to make sense for. So employment numbers is one that we're following closely. The key to an economy, my dad always says, is earning wage and then spending, right? So if you're spending money, if you're earning money and spending money, I don't know about you guys, but I went to pick up a bike for my son, Alexandre, at Bikes and Beyond here in Winnipeg on Sunday. First of all, I waited outside a good hour because people were lined up and you could only have 3 people in the store at a time. So that was neat. Finally, when we got in, we picked up our bike. We had bought it already online, picked up the bike, and I went to put in my MasterCard into the thing, and I did not remember my PIN. I didn't remember my PIN for my MasterCard. That's how long it's been since I've actually made a purchase with my credit card live in a store. I was just blown away. And that got me thinking about our spending. Canadians that are spending, me personally. And, I feel like I'm a good reflection of the economy. I've not really spent that much money in the past 2 months. So I'm not going to be surprised to see the GDP numbers. And I'm working, right? And even the ones that are working, it's very tough for them to spend because everything is closed. And the ones that are spending anything recreationally, trips, all that is stopping. Anything kind of on a discretionary basis, jewelry, trips, all that is kind of effectively stopped. So I keep saying, expect the Q2 numbers to be bad, folks. Now, the good news is the market is already pricing this in at some level. And I'll just pause a sec there. The market is pricing in a likelihood. Remember that everything we see in the market every single day, it's a reflection of all of our opinions. My opinion, the other portfolio manager's opinion, everyone who's buying and selling stocks at any single moment of the day. The buyers and the sellers are always going to find somewhere where there's exactly the same amount of buyers and sellers on the same side. If there's way more buyers, prices go up. If there's way more sellers, prices go down. The market, the stock market, is a reflection not of what's happened in the past. It's not a reflection of what happened last month or last quarter. It's a reflection of what we think these stocks are going to be worth in the future. It's a reflection of what they're worth today, but it's also a reflection of what we think they'll be worth in the future. So whenever someone tells me, Rob, if you think that the news is going to be so bad in Q2, why is the market here? Well, I would say the market is here because it thinks that the news will be bad in Q2, because economies are opening, right? We're seeing, Manitoba today, Monday, May 5th, 4th, Monday, May 4th was the first day where golf courses are now open. You can now get a haircut. Some dentists are open. I believe you can get a fitness massage. And I believe there's a whole bunch of different services that have opened. Soon the tennis courts will be open. Parks will then be open at some point. Now this is happening in Winnipeg today, but it's also going to be happening in other provinces in the future and in other states. So, that in theory would lead to spending, right? So there's a question here by, I believe it's Leela. Where do you see economy going and how much longer can it support this lockdown? So the lockdown, the amount of time that we can support this lockdown, because of the balance sheet of Canada and the US, because they are so strong, the balance sheet, so the amount of assets that they have that they can print. This is not like the 80s when if you printed money or if you created debt, you needed to pay interest on the bond, right? So today, if you were to issue a bond, Government of Canada bond, 20-year bond, and say, we will pay you back over 20 years, well, you'll be able to issue that at a very low price, right? 1.5%, 2%, something like that. So your cost of borrowing that capital is extremely low. right? So governments can afford to borrow more than they ever could because interest rates are at all-time low. And that's not borrowing, they're effectively printing their own money and issuing their own bonds or buying bonds into the market. So I think the answer, how long can they sustain? There's no doubt in my mind that the government can continue to sustain this, I think, for several months, even a couple quarters. I mean, it will have to eventually be tapered off, the level of support. But I think it'll work hand in hand. Now, don't get me wrong, there will be deficits in the budget for the future. I think we all know that. But largely, our economy is going to be able to withstand this. I firmly believe that. Now, I know you're mentioning that there's a state of emergency in Montreal. Absolutely. I know that there's many places on earth where we are not open yet. State of emergency. There's a ton of people that aren't able to go out, businesses that aren't open. I get it. I totally get it. I understand that it's not, we're lucky. We're straight up lucky in Winnipeg that we're getting like 1 case a day on 1 million people. Those of you who caught Dr. Karen Fowler's show a couple of weeks ago, she was an epidemiologist, and she said you want to get down to 1 case per million people per day. Well, that's where we're at in Winnipeg. And typically 1 case per million people, you're spreading it to one person, and you can build herd immunity. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert here. I'm certainly not an expert, but those were her words. So how long can we go? I think the economy is able to withstand this for a lot of reasons, specifically lower interest rate costs, and specifically because I think as a society, we are ready to pay for it. I think I'm okay if my taxes go up. I'm okay if my taxes go up and I have to pay more next year because, we had some social services, and the result of that is I think people bonding together and we're kind of living through this together, right? So I feel like that's the attitude at some level. And I guess we'll find out, but I don't expect the stimulus to stop anytime soon, I would argue. I forget where I was going with my train of thought there, but I think we can definitely withstand the economy for a bit, spending like this for a bit here. I'm going to go on to my next question here. This is another headline here, the Bank of Canada. So Deputy Bank of Governor, by the way, they announced the Bank of Canada governor on Friday. Not sure if I told you guys this already. Tiff Macklem is going to be the new Stephen Pelosi. So he's replacing Stephen. Stephen is retiring in June. Retiring or stepping down? I'm not sure what the right word is. Stepping down in June. June 3rd is his last day. June 4th, Tiff Macklem steps in. Tiff Macklem, I believe his title was Dean at the Rotman School of Business at the University of Toronto. I believe that's U of T. So I actually went to U of T. I did my law school there. U of T is a great, great school. One of the best in the country, one of the best in the world. The Rotman School of Business has a fantastic reputation. I did not do my MBA there. I did my MBA here at the University of Manitoba at the Asper School of Business. But he was very highly regarded. And you guys may remember that when I was suggesting who might be, I had said it's going to be either Tiff Macklem or it's going to be Carolyn Wilkins. Well, Tiff Macklem got the job. They announced him on Friday. And today, Carolyn Wilkins said in a speech, I think it was today or over the weekend, that the monetary policy is about ensuring businesses and individuals can access lines of credit and short-term loans. So there's going to be a lot of loans, a lot of lending, because in theory, to answer your earlier point, Leela, in theory, the money we're spending today, a lot of that can just be loans, right? The government can lend us money, businesses, entrepreneurs, people that are at home, just to kind of take us through the next period of time. And just like the government of Canada is going to be in a position to pay back that over time, we as consumers are going to be ready to pay back those debts, over the course of the next year or two as the economy has gotten weaker here. So Wilkins did say that the financial risk to taxpayers is low. So that's good. Restrictions are on the federal, provincial, and private bond purchase programs. As a reminder, Canada is a AAA credit rating. Us and Germany, I believe, of the G7 countries. So the G7 are the 7 largest economies in the world. I believe we're the only 2 in the G7 that have the AAA rating. It wouldn't surprise me if that were to go away at some point in the next 3 months. But as of now, so again, your credit rating is how likely are you to make payments on your debt. You and I, everyone watching here, has a credit rating. It's a score, 720 or 680 or 740, however it's measured. Countries are measured like cuts of meat. AAA, AA. I don't even know how they measure cuts of meat. Maybe that's a wrong explanation. How about credit ratings are measured like hockey players? AAA, AA, I don't know. B. AAA being the best, obviously. Guys, feel free to shoot me your questions. We're now getting the closing numbers here. So the numbers you're seeing at the bottom, I would imagine, are the closing numbers. The Russell finished up a bit. Crude finished up over $20. Silver was down a tad. We had a big bounce today. The S&P numbers finished up 13 points. The Dow finished up 41. NASDAQ up 95. As a reminder, those of you who don't know, the NASDAQ is a largely tech index, whereby the S&P 500 is the 500 largest companies. The Dow is more of an industrial, kind of 30 largest companies. Gold up $11 again today, 17.12 for gold. Okay, that's a bit of a move. Also, if we take a look at what happened last week, I believe I recapped this, but we had a strong start to the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, big start to the week. And then Thursday, Friday was down about 600-700 points, something like that. Rally negatively closed the week. This week, I'd say we're off to a good start. I expected more blood today when I saw when I did the global market report this morning. I expected more blood, and it's good to see that the market's only finished down. Actually finished up. That's fantastic. I like to see those rallies, intraday rallies, as we call them. What we don't want to see is intraday drops. There's a ticker at the bottom there. You can go to robtatro.com if you have further questions. You could also go to speaktorob.com. I talked about the Vancouver sales numbers. I want to talk about a couple other companies here that made the news today. J.Crew. Anyone wear J.Crew? I know that's a brand of clothing. They're filing for bankruptcy protection. So I believe it's a kind of preppy, what do they make? Like board shorts and polos, and I don't know what they make. If anyone knows, by all means, please share. But J.Crew, they have 181 stores worldwide. They employ 13,000 people. They're applying for bankruptcy protection. They've laid off 11,000 people. This is kind of the first real global company that's looking like it might be bankrupt because of COVID. I think I could be wrong on that. Revenue is expected to be down 32%. Adjusted earnings down 52%. So they're going into bankruptcy protection. For those of you who don't know, typically when a company goes into bankruptcy protection, you apply to the courts. You say, listen, we can't function anymore. You need to help us. And there's typically a bankruptcy trustee that's appointed. In the US, a little bit different than Canada, but they'll then go through a process where they try to maximize the assets. They'll talk to the debt holders. They'll say, listen, we owe you $10 million. Any chance you take a haircut on that, or maybe don't pay us or maybe don't take any payments from us for a few years, just so we can survive. And if we can survive, maybe you get all your money at the end. There's like a negotiation period with the debt holders. There's also sometimes a negotiation period with the debenture holders, the equity holders, and typically they try to come to a solution. So J.Crew filed for bankruptcy protection. That is happening. We talked about Buffett. We talked about the airlines dropping today. Some of the other headlines with respect to the announcements. I did want to cover the announcement with respect to Mac Tiflin, largely praised. I followed this kind of on BNN Bloomberg. Mark Carney, you guys maybe remember Mark Carney. He was the gentleman who was in charge of the Bank of Canada before Stephen Poloz. So he's now in the UK. He said, TIF brings unparalleled combination of experience in central banking. I don't know if you guys caught my dad's comment on Thursday. We were talking about Jerome Powell. So Tiff Macklem is the equivalent to Jerome Powell. Tiff Macklem is Canada's Jerome Powell. So he's Justin Trudeau to Donald Trump's Jerome Powell. So is an incredibly important person. My dad said on the show, he's the most important person for the movement of the stock market. So in Canada, it's important. I don't know much about Tiff Macklem, but he comes highly regarded. Mark Carney says good things about him. Doug Porter, chief economist at BMO, says good things about him. Gordon Nixon, chair at CEO Royal Bank Canada. I can't think of a better person for this role than Tiff. So I'm going to definitely follow this closely. And, we don't know if he's dovish or hawkish, if he's more likely to keep interest rates low or kind of let market forces dictate. But the first kind of news that I see is that he's coming up with good reviews. The latest number on the U.S. Seeking to borrow money, $3 trillion is what they're seeking to borrow this quarter. So I had talked about $2 trillion. We're now up to $3 trillion. The US government debt is now at 25 trillion, and the current fiscal year deficit, 744 billion. So the deficit obviously is the annual, that would be like your profit loss statement. How much money came in, how much money went out, and then what's your net. So that would be 744, and the actual overall debt is now 25 trillion. So the debt is kind of an annual running tally, and the deficit is the annual number. I expect Canada's numbers are going to come out fairly soon, the projected numbers, but these are really, I called it a bazooka. I call it a bazooka. They're just throwing a ton of money at this, which is why the market's likely propping up and surviving right now. Warren Buffett also talked about 2 books that he recommended reading for anyone who's bored. And I'm going to ask you guys, is anyone still reading books? I still read books. I know in my family, there's a lot of book reading that happens. My sister, my brother's an avid reader. My mom's always been a big reader. We read books in our family, but I don't know if other people read books. I know Derek Funk, who works for me, he listens to them on his drive, on his commute. And he always tells me, Rob, I read this great book. And I tell him, well, you didn't really read it, Derek. You kind of listened to it. You kind of listened to the book on your drive into work. And he says, it's the same thing. But one of the books that Warren Buffett says is basically the Great Crash of 1929 by John Kenneth Galbraith, if you want to read that. And then the other one was Keeping at It, The Quest for Sound Money and Good Government. So Paul Volcker, so he was the U.S., Stephen Pelosi in the U.S. He was Jerome Powell way back in the day. Another thing that I want to mention on Warren Buffett, sorry, there's a lot of Warren Buffett talk, but it's not every day you get 4 hours of Warren Buffett over the course of a weekend, and I watched most of it, so I thought there were a lot of tidbits from that. One of the points he said, and I swear he probably watched the Rob Tatro show last week. You may recall I said on Thursday, I said, capitalism will not fail. Nothing will stop us. The markets will hit new highs. And you know why? Because there's a dollar to be made. There's an entrepreneur out there who's going to hustle, who's going to try to earn that dollar from you. And we are willing to spend that dollar as well to improve our livelihood. So I was a firm believer in that. His comment was, nothing can stop America. So, I mean, I would agree with that. I would tie in Canada in there as well, but nothing can stop America is what he said. Deaths per day. So I want to talk briefly about the economies opening up in the U.S. So we've now had, I think, some of the largest death days in the U.S. So the most people that have ever died in a day is kind of happening now. So I'm a tad concerned. I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert, but that means that there's a lot of people dying right now, and that, maybe it's premature in the U.S. and some of those places to open. I don't know. But I know that we're going to find out fairly soon, right? As I continue to take a look at the headlines here in Canada, some of the big headlines, I mean, we talked about the airlines. We talked about the employment destruction. Maybe I want to talk briefly about my staff real quick, just tell you guys how it's going here at the Tatro Group. And in the meantime, feel free to send me a question or two. But for us, it is business as usual. Nobody's been laid off. Obviously, I told my staff on the first day, we're not going to be part of this recession. We are not going to be part of this recession. We are going to continue to work. Even if I have no work to give you, we are not going to be part of this recession. Today, a couple people came back into the office. So it wasn't just me today into the office. So we have 3 people in the office today. We're going to rotate in and out. Everyone's been working. Not only that, I want to grow this team. So if any of you know anyone who would like to work for the Tatro Wealth Advisory Group, maybe has a background in finance or is just a hard worker, by all means, feel free to send me an email. I would read it. Or if you personally want to work for the Tatro Wealth Advisory Group, we are hiring, we're growing, we're a fast growing team. We'd love to hear about you. We'll probably get some ads and stuff opened up over the future, but it's business as usual for us. As usual is probably the wrong word because I haven't had a haircut in I don't know how long. There's not been any food courts open here, so I have to bring my lunch, which is crazy. I know. No, I eat cereal a lot at the office. There's the gyms aren't open here. Basically the business is closed, but as close as it can be to business as usual. We do Zoom meetings every day. We're constantly connecting via Skype or Salesforce or all the different tools we have at the office. So
I don't know about you guys, if there's any entrepreneurs that are watching and you guys have had to kind of reinvent your business. It's, for me, I found it remarkably refreshing to have to go through this exercise. It is incredibly painful and it's incredibly terrible what's happening on the planet. But for me, it kind of gave me an opportunity to do some deep diving, take a look at myself, take a look at my business, take a look at my team. And I've actually appreciated and enjoyed that part of it. Started working out, started eating better, I'm at home a lot more than I ever was. So for me, it's been really, really eye-opening, and I'm working through it. And I'm actually extremely comfortable in what's happening right now. I've come to make amends with what's happening, and I can't control it. My mom would always tell me, if you can't control it, stop worrying about it. Worry about the stuff you can control. And she always would also say, don't sweat the small stuff. And I know this is not small stuff, but the individual pieces of this are potentially small stuff. So I've been keeping an incredibly positive demeanor through all this. I'm smiling a ton. I'm singing. I got a bit of a hop in my step. You guys might not care about that, but I thought I would share that with you as well. Mox is telling me we had 0 cases today in Manitoba for COVID. And just a friendly reminder, guys, before I get to a few more questions, give this video a like, share it on your timeline. Go to our YouTube page, subscribe to our channel, go to our Facebook page, like our Facebook page. Is it like? I believe it's like, yeah. Like or love a Facebook page. I'm also letting you guys know I'm working on a really neat project as well. If you guys have ideas for this, I'm working on a really neat project, which is basically creating financial literacy courses for individuals who don't have who maybe didn't have a dad or a mom like me, and didn't have the opportunity to learn throughout their life about financial literacy. So if you have ideas about courses or topics that you think would make sense for me to share, create a video for, I would love to hear your suggestions, I'll call it, on that. I'm actually reading, someone's asking me what book I'm reading right now. I'm reading Ray Dalio's book, his latest. I forget what it's called. The latest from Ray Dalio. Also want to talk about this basically the U.S. election. I'll just make a brief comment on it. Someone's asking me about the U.S. election. Well, the U.S. election, I think we've talked about it at length, I'll say. We are now, 6 months away from the election. First Tuesday in November, or second Tuesday in November is the election. The polls are showing Biden's got a slim lead, I think. Biden's got some skeletons, I think, that the Democratic Party's got to hash out for sure. Trump's going to have, I think it's going to be very interesting. Let's put it that way. I think it's going to be incredibly interesting. I think the question was, will the market move more positively if Trump gets in or if Biden gets in? Remember back for the last election, I don't know if you guys recall, 4 years ago, 2016, Trump got in. Nobody thought Trump would get in. The futures that night, I'll never forget. I went to bed. I had my phone. I was watching the futures. The futures were down 1,200 points. And that was a number that didn't exist back then. Now, through COVID, we know that number exists. But back then, it didn't exist. Futures were down 1,200 points, which means that we were expected to open down the next morning 1,200 points. I went to bed. I said, okay, well, that's going to suck. In the morning, I woke up. The futures were only down, 500 or something. By the end of that day, the market was positive, and the market ended up rallying a ton over the next few months. Now, just to be clear, I am not making a political statement as to which side, I'm extremely apolitical. Those who know me know that I don't dabble in politics. I choose not to get involved because, quite frankly, I could have clients on one side or the other of the equation. But if the question is just straight up how the market would react, we think right now that the market, some analysts think that the market would likely react positively if Trump got out, new blood, kind of get the economy going. I'm not so sure that would happen. I think the market would likely, historically, the market has reacted better to Republicans winning the election than the Democrats. And usually the first year of an election is usually a good year regardless. So I'm incredibly optimistic for the first year after the election, because usually that's when presidents kind of want to strut their stuff, puff their chest out a bit, spend some dollars, get the economy going. So I do expect that there's going to be some of that, regardless who gets in. But I think the market, if you're asking me to pick one or the other, which market would react better, I think likely if Trump got in, the market would likely react better than if Biden got in. But I don't know that. Obviously, that's a guess on my part. I certainly don't know that. And I'm guessing just historically. So we're approaching the end of the show here, guys. Any further questions with respect to what's going on? As a reminder, guys, for taxes, if you haven't kind of taken yourself through this, there was an extension to file your taxes. The April 30th date got moved a bit. If you own a corporation and your year end was December 31, you don't owe anything until August. So you also have an extension there. If you're not sure about the CERB benefits, we did do a show on this in the past. The CERB benefit is $2,000 monthly. You could still earn about $1,000 per month. So if you're laid off, you should definitely be looking into that. Hopefully you already have. Anyone doing any sports this week? I had some buddies, and I believe some of the staff on my team are going golfing tomorrow, I believe. The St. Boniface Golf Club is going to be open. Today is the first day that the St. Boniface Golf Club is open. Might try to get in a round over the weekend. I used to be a half-decent golfer, but I'm a bit of a hacker now, but that's okay. I still enjoy it. It's fun to get out, and I haven't been out. I'm kind of looking forward to the tennis courts opening, really looking forward to the tennis courts opening, to kind of running around. And I'm not a good tennis player, but I enjoy running around. I busted out my unicycle last night, yesterday afternoon for the first time. My kids asked me, what's that? I said, that's a unicycle. There's no way you could ride that, Papa. I said, of course I could ride a unicycle. So my wife's like, Michelle's like, I don't think you can ride it, Rob. It's been 10 years maybe since you've ridden your unicycle. And I was like, I got this. Sure enough, I rode my unicycle. It wasn't pretty, but I did ride my unicycle. It's been a while. Back in the day, I used to juggle. I used to juggle and ride the unicycle kind of in parades and stuff. I guess I could have been a clown, maybe. You know what? If this thing doesn't work out, maybe I'll be a clown. Derek Funk is supposed to be the team kind of clown. He's the magician. He's the one who does actual magic. I just ride a unicycle and juggle. It's not that interesting. So that's kind of it for me and what I've been doing. That's it for the headlines today, guys. We do have some really interesting shows coming later this Thursday. Please join me on Thursday. Please make absolutely sure to stay posted, stay tuned to the show, because we will be announcing who our guests are. We got some huge guests coming. I would subscribe if you haven't done it yet. Go wherever you're watching this, on YouTube or wherever, subscribe. Click the subscribe button. If you're watching on Facebook, click the like button. If you'd like to chat, please go to www.speaktorob.com. I'm thankful to all of you for tuning in. I enjoy spending this time with you guys. Part of this is journaling for me. Part of this is talking through our emotions. Part of this is you guys getting a feel for how I feel about the market. Again, my name is Rob Tatro, Portfolio Manager, Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management, the Tatro Wealth Advisor Group. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I will see you Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have a great day.